Yeah, hello. Once the work breakdown structure is done, the lowest level in the WBS is the work packages. So the work packages gets decomposed further into activities. And once we know the activities, once we have the activity list, the next step is estimating the resource requirement for those activities. And we sequence them. Basically, we use two types of networks for sequencing because that means, okay, now we have to superimpose these activities, all the dependencies, because there are four types of dependencies like finish to start, finish to finish, start to start, and start to finish. And these dependencies can be either internal to the project or external to the project. So once we apply all these dependencies onto the activities, we get the activity network diagrams. There are two types of activity network diagrams. One is activity on node diagram. The other one is on the activity on arrow diagram. If the project is a small project, we can always do an activity on arrow diagram, which has very few activities. But when the number of activities are very high, the activity on arrow diagram is not very scalable. Then we have to go for an activity on node diagram. Both activity on arrow diagram and activity on node diagram help us to calculate the critical path, which is the longest path in the network. The longest path in the network is the critical path. By doing this AOA or AON, we can arrive at the critical path. So irrespective of the method we are using, the duration of the critical path will remain as the same. Activities on the critical path cannot slip, because if activities on the critical path slip, the project will slip. Whereas the activities which is outside the critical path, even if they slip within their float, then they will not slip. For the exam, you may get questions like, can a critical path have multiple, can a project have multiple critical paths? It's quite possible. It's a very freak incidence. But still there can be two paths, which is the longest path in the network. So this one key thing we should remember is this activity on node diagram can show all the four types of dependencies like finish to start, finish to finish, start to start, and the start to finish, whereas activity on the arrow diagram can show only finish to start dependency. Activity on arrow diagram uses a dotted line, which is also known as dummy activity. This dummy activities doesn't consume any resources, whereas activity on node diagram doesn't have the concept of a dummy, but then they have some other freak terminologies like hammock. Hammock is a summary activity. So these things will be explained in detail in the subsequent videos. But then without understanding critical path, one cannot claim herself as a project manager, because these are the foundations of project management. Then here we are discussing about concepts like leads and lags. So when there is some amount of parallelism between two activities, then we say that there is a lag between activity A and activity B. But then if there is a when there is a parallelism between two activities, we say there is a lead between activity A and activity B. But then if there is a waiting time between two activities, then we say there is a lag between activity A and activity B. After applying for your PMP, there can be 15 days waiting time, so that is a lag. After pouring concrete, there could be 7 days curing time, so that is a lag. A lag always elongates the schedule, whereas a lead always compresses the schedule. See, then we have a lot of techniques like fast tracking, crashing. So crashing is all about putting more resources into an activity so that we can compress the duration of an activity. So if you want to optimize a schedule so that the end date of the schedule falls within the agreed upon end date of the project, we may do crashing. That means we may put some more resources onto the task which is lying on the critical path, so that the duration of the critical path can be compressed, so that the project duration comes down. Sometimes fast tracking is all about trying to do things in parallel which were originally scheduled sequentially. So both fast tracking and crashing we can use to optimize the schedule, and they come in very handy when there is a schedule slippage as well. So these things will be elaborated further in the subsequent video, and we may not go in depth into these things because we'll have only a cursory knowledge about these things, because this course allows only that much. Because if you want to really go in depth, that is going to take more time and some exercises as well. So please understand the sequence. There's a work packages decomposed into activities, and based on the dependencies of these activities they are sequenced, and for that we use two types of diagrams: activity on arrow and activity on node. And by doing so we arrive at the critical path. Critical path is as zero float. That means activities on the critical path cannot slip, and if they slip, the project will slip. So this much we should understand. Thank you very much.